So again, I don't have that. We haven't priced out that part of it. It would be priced out when we would come to council because it would have a grade and a position, but it would be an administrative position, so it would be on the lower end of our pay scale, but it would be somebody who would be have the ability to manage the email traffic, be able to take the minutes of these meetings, be able to handle the stuff going to the website, be able to handle the transfer of data for this at a significantly reduced cost versus us paying our legal counsel for that. And so, again, we have to do those functions right now, and we're doing those functions through legal.
Do we know it will be a significant reduction in money?
Well, because one employee is going to handle the aspects versus paying our attorney for it.
Is there that much work for a full-time employee for a year at
Well, right now
38 hours a week or 30? What do we work?
Right now, we're paying a employee in the state's attorney's office to not do state's attorney's work, and we're paying our legal counsel.
Okay.
And between those two, we would narrow it down to one employee.
You know, how many hours are we paying them a week? I mean, is this going to consume a 40-hour week for 52 weeks a year or whatever? I don't know.
So again, 4 hours cost $1,000.
I understand that.
Yeah, but again, if right now, and I don't know the number, let's assume it's $40,000. That's only 40 days if Andrew did it.
Well, I'm assuming you'll be able to present to us.
Yes.
This is what the position's going to be. This
And
is the pay scale.
I did not, I honestly was not 100% sure what you were looking for me for this evening. My intention is to have all of this information when we present to you the budget in April, and it would lay out, I mean, this would, again, the advantage for council of it being a department, a munis department. Again, that's in my brain, it's a department every time, so I apologize if that's confusing. But a munis department is that it would be very easy to see what the cost of that department is going to be. And I can compare and contrast at that point how many hours it would, if we were paying Mr. Illuminati to do these functions, how many hours we would only be able to do versus what it would cost to have a full-time employee.
So setting up this board has been the biggest cost, you know, putting all these people together. So we've got all this set up and it's all put together now. Now there's going to be people leave and have to be more people appointed at some point in time. But I guess, you know, with seven pending cases, you know, a 40-hour week. Can somebody tell me how many hours a week county employees work
40.
now? 40, okay.
Or a 40-hour work week.
Okay, all right. So is that going to consume somebody for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year?
Joe, I understand what you're saying, and I'm just going to chime in here. Just to kind of reiterate, I tried to absorb this, and council denied it. So I'm kind of at a loss right now. I tried to have this position specifically, or the duties of this, for the deputy director, assistant director of administration, for that same exact.
You've not hired an assistant director of administration yet.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is when I brought that to you guys, you voted on it. I put PAB as part of their duties, and you didn't even introduce the bill. So unfortunately, I'm not able to do that now. So we're trying to figure out a way. It was,
PAB.
yeah, so Police Accountability Board, these things were added to the job description
Of what?
of the Assistant Director of Administration, the one that you all voted down.
We didn't vote down the assistant director of administration,
Yes, you
Julie.
did.
No, we didn't.
Yes,
We
you
vote-
did. It
yeah.
was the degree preferred or required, but the job description changed. So you voted down the job description.
We didn't vote down. We did not vote down. John, did we vote down the assistant director of
You didn't
administration?
even introduce it, so.
We didn't vote down the Assistant Director of Administration. We voted down the job description that was proposed that would change the position to an Administrator of Public Safety, and that's what the council did not want to do.
Presented to you though at all.
It was what was presented to us. We have no problem if you want to put this responsibility and this, and include this as a job description for the deputy director. That's fine.
I'm really confused because when we brought the bill forward, it was the PIO, the legislative aid, and changing the job description for the Assistant Director of Administration.
Preferred,
The description that was given to you all included these duties.
and it was the main change on the job description was, it wasn't changing the title. It was keeping it as Assistant Director of Administration, but the main change was to
Degree preferred.
degree preferred, not degree required.
And pretty much changing the entire responsibility of that position.
No, the only thing was changing that because you guys, I mean, we decided not to do that. So you said you still wanted that, but be that as it may, I added these in, which makes me feel like it wasn't read, which is, it's kind of frustrating, but I was going to absorb this. For those very reasons, I had the same concerns because when Andrew came to me and said, this is an issue, this is not legal work, this needs to be done within, whatever, I said, I absolutely agree, and it's costing us $175 an
So-
hour.
But why?
So
What
again,
are you doing? What are you actually preparing when they keep saying it costing us $175?
So I think that goes, so the manager of the board, this is sort of ideas things that I do that I don't really view as legal work, coordinate so for example, if I sit on the Board of Appeals, there's a staff member who, as legal counsel to the Board of Appeals, there's a staff member that prepares an agenda, prepares all the documents for the meeting, prepares the minutes from the previous meeting, disseminates that to everyone, and I review what they're going to consider at that meeting. I sit there, and unless asked to provide legal opinion, I do not conduct the meeting, I do not run the meeting, I do not get involved in the meeting. The last PAB meeting, I ran. I fielded questions, I took notes, I performed, if they want to, for example, they want to consider the complaint form is only in English. Can it be in French or Spanish, or what about having an interpreter available? There are these questions about expanding access. And those are the ideas. And then these are their ideas, but there's no sort of step B to implement those ideas, because that would require me, and to a degree it was with the IT department, well, how could we do a Google Translate? How could this be done? And now I'm going off from just coming to the meeting and providing legal advice to interacting with the IT department, figuring out, how can we begin to disseminate, doing research on that, or asking them to do research. And so it sort of gets off topic. If they want to host a forum for the public, reserving the Civic Center, creating advertisements, doing a public outreach campaign, there is nobody to do that.
Well,
And-
if what is being suggested is what was proposed, if you're saying that the job title for the Assistant Director of Administration also include oversight on the Police Accountability Board, I don't know that the council has any problem with that whatsoever.
Can I jump? Wouldn't that mean you're paying
We don't
somebody?
have any problem with that, if you want to change that job description, if you want to add those responsibilities, we have no problem with that whatsoever. You seem to think that the deputy director could take on that role, that would be fine.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that mean that someone at a pretty high pay level would be doing secretarial / paralegal work?
We have a
Which is-
secretary staff that could do that in the office.
Well, then-
no, the secretary staff.
Then the
that's-
guy isn't doing the full-time job.
So the secretary staff that we have in the executive's office are working full-time on the tasks that they currently have. So this position would be administrative and secretarial with oversight by the deputy director. But again, there's other things. There is the possibility of reimbursement. There is IT costs. There is the cost for this contract for an administrative judge. Those are all things that we have to consider in this next budget. And again, my suggestion, instead of having it be buried within somewhere else, finance, purchasing, law, the executive office, it has its own account numbers so that it is very transparent to the public, to the council, and and it's easier for me to report, honestly, for how much, because we're going to get asked, how much is it costing to run this program? And the easiest way to do that is to set up its own separate accounts.
Well, as is what's happened in the past few weeks, I always agree that we should know where and how the money's being spent, and the money's being spent in the departments that it should be, where the work is. I understand what you're saying, okay? But what I want to know, is there going to be enough work for, please don't interrupt, is there going to be enough work when we're all set up to keep a person busy 40 hours a week? And we've got 7 cases that's pending. I mean, that's my question.
We have 7 cases that are pending on a brand-new process. I can't answer your question specifically because, as, again, these boards want to do outreach. These boards want people to know that these boards are there. Again, would we prefer that there is never any incidences that the public feels caused conflict with any of our law enforcement? Yeah, probably. We would prefer that. But that's not what the state of Maryland has set up. The state of Maryland has told us that we need these boards. We need to be letting people know that these boards are here, and we have to handle whatever comes through. We haven't even had a full year of these boards being trained and have availability. We've had 10 cases since they've been allowed to file. Are we going to have 30 cases once we know that it starts running? I can't answer that question.
That's an unknown, and I think Andy made a really good point. As far as talking about the costs, it would not work for the assistant deputy director at all because of what the assistant deputy director is getting paid. You cannot assign that individual to tasks like this. We have to know what the level of the tasks really are. Right now, you say it's in the state's attorney's office. I'm not going to ask, but I'd be curious as to what we are actually paying that individual right now in the state's attorney's office to do this type of work, and whether it's costing us more than it should or not. That's okay. That decision, I'm assuming, had to be made. But I do think we need to iron it down as to what the proper compensation is going to be in this position.
And again,
And
all of that information.
At one point in time, when we come up with that decision, then we can possibly decide whether or not this is a role that someone could play sort of as a hybrid, where they could play, be the manager of this board, but at the same time, when there was no work to do, they would be able to transfer their attention to something else in whatever department they may be sharing. I'd like to say state's attorney's office would be perfect, but I don't know if there is anyone in the state's attorney's office that is on the level of salaries that would also justify both roles.
So again, our budget process is in its infancy associated with, administration presents the budget to you on April's, I think it's 15th. I keep forgetting whatever that Tuesday is.
15th.
I keep saying the 3rd Tuesday of April because that I can remember.
15th is our deadline.
Third Tuesday, no, it's the 3rd Tuesday of April. It's the 3rd Tuesday of April.
18th.
18th. Okay.
Unless you
So.
need an extension.
So, since I have taken this position, I have not asked for an extension for filing that budget. You guys get the budget on the 3rd Tuesday of April. That's charter mandated. That is what you will get. And so we will be able to answer these questions. Again, I was not 100% sure what you were looking for from me this evening. I just knew my name was on the agenda. So, again, Mr. Illuminati has suggested that we need funding for this. My suggestion and the way I'm intending to present it to council is as a separate section within the budget, so it's very easy to see. Again, Could it be moved elsewhere? Yes. I think it's cleanest to keep it there so that we can see that information transparently, because all they would have to do is enter one thing.
Just want to say,
I was thinking maybe the executive's office could contact the sheriff's office and see maybe what last year's complaints were to get a rough idea of what we can look and expect. And then maybe we could take Andrew, what he charges, or his office charges by the hour, and just kind of do a comparison.
And my intention is when we come to you with that budget, we would have information comparing and contrasting different ways to pay for it. And this is why we suggested what we did in the budget. Because,
Well,
And Del
It's
Mar.
all police.
and so that's the thing is it's not just what we're doing within our own the sheriff's office, it's every department within Wicomico County.
We're not sure yet if the municipalities will have to pay for
That's a
theirs
Senate,
or
so
not.
that's a bill that's going in, but also.
County Executive Giordano, can you use a
Oh,
microphone?
I'm sorry, I'm
It's,
sorry.
it's actually, the same thing happened as.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, so one of the bills going in will decide that if they're going to absorb those costs. But, and I know that Andrew's going to get to this, but we have Senate Bill 285 as well. So that's where the PAB will be able to investigate, and that is going to require additional funding. So, and I'll let him get in more into that, actually.
if I could, I'm sorry, James, if you could, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a suggestion about your department deciding if it's going to be under one department, and I think that's a great idea, just for keeping things organized. But I was thinking that I know the executive's office they're shorthanded. I walked over and I talked to some of the ladies there, and they're swamped with work all the time. I was just wondering if we could keep it as a separate department, but add in the job description of like an office clerk to the executive's department, to where they can handle some extra overflow work and attend to the accountability board.
And
That way,
again, that would be, all of those points would be given to council as to what the split of the cost would be, as to whether or not we think 75% of the time, 50% of the time, 25% of the time is going to be spent on this department. Munis has the ability to be able to split the cost between departments. So we could hire one employee that does similar and has similar background functions within multiple departments. We do that. I mean, Rec Parks and Tourism, where I came from, my position was split across tourism, civic center, and rec and parks, because I was handling aspects of all three. And so that can happen. We can do that. The question, but I don't have those answers for you tonight. I don't have an answer for you, Joe, as to whether or not there is 40 hours of work, because I haven't finished the analysis of
my
that.
concern is, okay, and I think we've kind of touched on that tonight. If there's not 40 hours, can we do what you just suggested or what John just suggested?
Yes.
That's what we need to do.
And so-
to have somebody sitting there with a 40-hour-a-week paycheck coming in and only 20 hours worth of work.
And so the intention would be is we would have, and it is going to be an estimate, because until we have a full year of this under our belts, we won't know for sure what the level of, but it will be an estimate, and we will make our best estimate, and we will make the suggestion as to why we think it needs to be 75, 25, 50, whatever that number is when we come in April.
Andrew, how far are you? How close are you?
I'm going to move quickly if that's
That's good, because
acceptable. All right.
we all want to hear from Mr. Monar. You realize that?
Yes. All right. So we'll go, so here's the file serving software. So what this is each investigation is completed by the law enforcement agency. It's forwarded to the county. The investigative files consist of body camera footage from each officer on scene, any in-car camera footage, interview of the complaining party, officer, any witnesses, any other visually media obtained. So think if it happens at a Royal Farms, there might be security camera footage, there might be police, there are going to be probably police reports, the original complaint, and then any supplemental materials, cell phone recordings, photos by any parties, to it. And so all of that goes to the ACC to consider. There is not a way to get that information to them in advance of the meeting right now. So for example, Somerset County is providing a computer that's loaded with the material for each of those board members to review, and then that comes back to them. Worcester County is in the process of ordering computers for each person, but there's a packet prepared and delivered in advance. Personally, I think there's a concern there. If you provide a packet, somebody could copy it, disseminate it in some way. Obviously, I believe in all the 5 people that are on our board, but unfortunately, things do happen along the way. The system that's being proposed would allow these individuals to receive the information in advance. To give an example, there's between 90 minutes and 3 hours of material. 3 have been clear because those 3 have taken just one meeting, and they got trained in November. They met in, I believe, December. They met once in November, once in January, once in February. They've been able to clear 3 because it's taking once a month, and those were ones that were on the small end of the amount of time. There was the ones that are left, 4 or 5 officers respond. They each leave their body camera footage on for 90 minutes. That's a lot of material to review on the day of. Unfortunately, the biggest complaint from the chiefs that we get is that the officers have this hanging over their head. They're all allowed to keep performing their day-to-day duties, but they believe they acted justly. They believe they acted in accordance with department policies and procedures, and they want to be cleared as soon as possible. Or if they did something, they want to acknowledge it and move on and take responsibility for the actions. So at this point, I'll defer to Mr. Monar to explain how the system operates and how much it's going to cost.
So the IT department was brought into this, as Mr. Illuminati mentioned, to give the ACC board members the ability to review whatever type of files they needed to review, video footage, audio files, documents, outside of the meeting. Instead of having to spend the entire meeting reviewing and not really getting much else accomplished, we reviewed several different options for secure file sharing services, cloud-based services. We came up with one that we thought was the best option to use. I myself spent at least, I would say, almost a week reviewing, putting other things I needed to get done, and we have a lot of things going on in the IT department right now, reviewing different services, and I ended up having enough funding in my main software account that we had some savings on another big software annual payment we make, and I was able to purchase this service right now because they need it now. They need to review for the pending cases. So the software service has been purchased. We're going to be onboarding it and training the person in the state's attorney's office that is basically doing all the administrative work right now, and it's going to give the board the ability to review this, whatever files they need to securely outside of the meeting time. So
They won't be able to download it to their personal computer, correct?
correct. They cannot download the files. They can only view the files on their device. And it's multi-factor authentication. It's all US-based cloud service. Their storage, it's the highest level of encryption available. So we chose a product that we could get the most secure features out of it to allow them to do what they needed to do. And to not, what we didn't want to do is right now having to spend meeting time reviewing hours and hours of footage is really holding them up. I mean, like Mr. Illuminati said, everybody wants to kind of move forward. And so I think this will allow them to do those things and view those files securely without being able to download those files. And but that's, again, that's an expense that this board is going to incur every year. These are annual fees for these type of services. This fee that we paid up front here was $4,100. That included the first year of service and 4 hours of onboarding and training for the person who's going to be administering this. Next year, if we get a new person, that person's going to have to be trained as well, and that's going to be another expense. So these are going to be ongoing expenses, and I think, honestly, this is probably just the start of the technology that these boards are going to be asking for. Personal devices, I'm going to guess that they're going to want devices provided to them.
So in that instance, some of the footage that they may be watching, they may not be interested in watching it on their own personal computers. And having that, even though they can't download it,
They might just not feel uneasy about doing that.
And so that's one of the concepts that we're also looking at, is whether or not we should be purchasing laptops that would be the property of the county, that would have the ability to do these things. So again, that's another expense that we would be looking at to potentially put in this next year's budget. And again, having it segregated so we know how much. Now, that would be a one-time expense, hopefully for at least several years, but the annual cost of purchasing this software would then be able to be tracked as well within this budget. So one more thing to, instead of having the costs spread out across multiple different departments, we would be able to see everything within one.
So you're saying this technology would allow them to view this stuff at home?
Correct. Yes.
Shane, I
Problem
already
with
know
that?
what you're thinking.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like it at all,
that
but the sheriff has already, I already had a
Sheriff,
meeting with him, and
yeah.
he signed off on it and said it was okay.
I mean, the software set up, and this is the big thing that John and I talked about, so that they can't download it, that files can be watermarked, so that if there is a, screen recording, you can make sure that it says, PAB Smith, so you know who it comes from, so that, and unfortunately, the way the law is written, at the end of the day, it can become public information anyway.
14 days.
But that's not something that was coming from anyone here, or any of the former council members. That's something coming from the state. So that's where the software that was acquired was done to, it's the AWS for government. So basically, how the FBI can share files internally to make sure, against, if we're buying the best we can buy to protect our officers, it's all that can be done, unfortunately. Otherwise, they have to give up more time, come to the county exec's office, sit in a conference room, sit with a laptop and be watched by somebody.
They can only do it then 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, because that's when the building is open.
Software's already been purchased.
Correct.
The next step is the question of, is it going to have to go as far as computers because people don't want to use it? In speaking with the ACC to date, there is hesitation, but understand that they volunteered for something, that this is an evolving process, and that they are willing at this point to use their personal materials, though it is done with hesitation and knowing that the surrounding counties are getting provided laptops.
They're going to have to provide them laptops. There's no way they're going to put this on their home computer and then have their kids come on 2 days later. I don't know, John, I don't know how the security might be, but
It's multi-factor authentication, so it's not like the files could be downloaded to the local device. They have to log in, they have to have their password. For instance, their cell phone receives a text code, they have to then enter that text code, the application opens up, they view the file, they close it out, and once they log out of the session, it's all web-based. They would have to go through that authentication process again on whatever device they're trying to view the files on.
But this is an investigation, and you could have 100 people in that room viewing that video.
Certainly could.
Somebody predominant, a judge, an attorney, and say, hey, look, this is the way I think you should vote, rule on this, and now you've got somebody's opinion who you'll never even know about. I could call my buddy Andrew Illuminati, come over to my house and view this video for me. Tell me what do you think I should do here?
he would ethically
Well,
I know,
you know what
exactly,
I'm
but
saying?
I fully understand that concern.
I don't
and
like this at all.
The only thing I can say is there is a confidentiality requirement that they have all signed that has been reviewed by them, that was prepared by legal to make sure that it was, and I'll say it honestly, the former acting county executive picked people with a certain background, based on who qualified. It's, former Captain Babe Wilson of the sheriff's office. You have the head of the PAB sits there. He was a bear commander with MSP. You have an individual who works at a very high level at Purdue. You have the former health department director for the county. You have an individual who is uniquely involved in day-to-day operations and physical fitness. So these are people that were not just selected, and yes, their terms come up, but the next time the county executive puts the next round of names, if these 5 fine people are not renominated in their staggered terms, then this council, to some degree, is going to have a say in those individuals. And so at this point, I feel confident in the 5 people that these items, between the ethics code that was made to be signed, what's in the code, and the software protections in place by IT, that where we are right now, this is a secure process, but it's something to strongly consider in the future going forward. I'm happy to walk you through that, or any member through council once, and then I'm sure John could set up a demo to show you how it would operate. But if we're using what the FBI uses.
I definitely would like to see it. Definitely.
Anything else, John?
Excuse me?
Anything else?
No, I mean, we'll have that person trained and the software up and running so the board can utilize it probably within the next several weeks.
And are they bringing in their personal computers now to have the software?
Yeah, right
There's no
now,
software that gets loaded on it.
There's
It's
nothing.
pure web-based.
and right now, the files remain at the state's attorney's office in a separate envelope. And if any computer's used, it's my computer. So it's protected under the county's attorney-client privilege. So that concludes how the software operates. And then briefly, this is the last slide. The trial board judge, this is to a degree really a non-starter. I included the contract in the packet. I went back and forth with the Office of the Attorney General, trying to negotiate, fees for travel time, fees for reimbursement. Really, the cost is going to be borne by the agency that the officer originates at. So the only way the county's truly paying is if it's coming out of the sheriff's office. If it comes out of Salisbury City is going to be paying for it. If it comes out of Fruitland's paying for it. Delmar pays for it.
And again, that's another reason to have this department. I know I keep beating a dead horse, I'm sorry. But again, it allow us to also have the ability to track, because you'll have the same code at the end, track the charges that we're charging the other departments, because we are the one that set it up at the moment, and we are the ones who are going to have those costs. But we will be able to bill out this administrative judge to that department if we create this contract. So again, we'd be able to see how much we're getting in from other departments for the costs associated with their department.
So I don't know if the judge is more sooner than later. I don't know if there will be a request to amend the current budget so that we can sign the document and get started. Again, there doesn't really need to be a $0 sum up front. And given how long it's taken to review everything, I don't even know if in this fiscal year we'll have a trial board potentially. But the contract, that's action that needs to be taken sooner than later, because the OAG may change their opinion and add, with inflation, add it to $250 an hour as the new charge. So I'd ask that contract be adopted, funded, and signed by the county executive. And then, in the summer, we can come back after we implement all this and sit down again and talk about potential changes. I know that was a lot, probably more in depth, but with no disrespect to the new members, I wanted to make sure you had a full understanding of how we arrived at this place in time, and allow the great department heads to provide that insight on how what's being asked is ideally, in our opinion, reasonable for what needs to be accomplished as dictated by the state, and understand that not something that was the idea of this body.
We knew when this was first presented and passed in Annapolis, we knew it wasn't going to be cheap. You know, it's,
Yep. So, and what we'll probably do too during budget sessions, we'll probably set aside one day or half of a morning just to make sure we do
Yeah.
this.
So again, what Andrew is saying is that we want, and I need to talk to Andrew about the contract aspect as to how to possibly fund it. Again, right now we're funding kind of within multiple departments, but my recommendation is that we would fund it in the next year in its own separate department.
well, not to prolong the agony here.
But here it goes.
You know, Julie, you mentioned there's a bill that would possibly reimburse us for what,
Be careful.
if I understood right, reimburse us for what's coming out of, if we cover, like, the town of Fruitland or something like that.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly,
If
okay.
it passes.
Okay, but that, you know, our state's attorney's office, who we fund fully, we do not get reimbursed if a crime happens in another jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So-
No, I know. Well, it actually said that they would absorb, actually, it was, I think the bill was that they had to create their own boards.
Yeah, so right
Yeah,
now,
but
we
they're
have
on
the,
boards.
we have the ability to charge for the costs. That's already been created.
That's in our county code. That was something that the previous council put in to make sure that if we're doing the work for another municipality, if we're doing the work for the
Okay,
municipality.
all right, so we have that already.
That
We
part,
have
right.
that,
No,
yep.
what the state is considering is to whether or not allowing the individual entities to create their own boards.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
fine.
But we would still have to have it because of the sheriff's office.
Right.
Yeah.
And you realize that's not going to happen. I mean, if you have to go through this for,
Mr. Mitchell, you have to use.
Use your mic, Andy.
you have to go through this for the county, there's no chance that Fruitland or Delmar or who else is going to set up 3 boards and all that stuff. It's just not going to happen.
So again, we have the ability under current code to charge. This would be, the state is looking at allowing individual municipalities to create their own boards.
Okay. Any other questions? No, Joe, no. Any other-
Okay, I got
You
one.
guys did a great job.
Thank you
even-
very much.
Even though I don't like the software. You did do a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you looking to have this contract on for resolution at the next meeting?
If that's acceptable and I can work through with the finance department on how to fund it, then yes,
For the judge?
yes.
I have not read the contract. So we need to talk offline about what needs to be done here.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Can you do opioid in 5 minutes?
Yes, John Raggio, who's outside counsel, is online. He can explain this specific offer. I can answer any questions. You were disseminated the PowerPoint, which discussed the previous, the Johnson & Johnson and other settlement agreements from about a year ago. The settlement structure is about the same. He can discuss the specifics and make a recommendation. John, are you on? I see you are logged in. If you can state your name and where you're from, please.
Not hearing him.
Sorry, Andrew, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I apologize, and I might switch over to phone audio if needed. My name is John Raggio. I'm with the Nachawati Law Group, formerly Fierce Nachawati Law Firm. We're here to discuss the proposed national opioid settlements that the county has the option to participate in. There are 5 settlements. 3 of them are retail pharmacies, and those are Walgreens, Walmart, and CVS. And then 2 of them are opioid medication manufacturers, and those are Teva and Allergan. And so you may recall from the prior settlements, there were a number of different defendants that have previously settled. The largest ones are Johnson & Johnson and the big 3 pharmaceutical distributors. So this is the next round of major settlements that have been negotiated, again, with which the county has the option to participate. So the questions that are typically come up, we've summarized in an email, and I know we sent to Andrew, and he's probably shared that with many of you all. But the questions about how much the county will receive and how the money would need to be spent are really the main questions. And so as with prior settlements, the amount for the particular subdivision, it depends on the participation rate. In other words, how many jurisdictions opt into to participate, that affects the overall amount. And then also what the particulars of every state's MOU are. And of course, with Maryland's MOU, that will have an effect on the end amount that's received by each municipality. So it is, however, similar to the amount that was received from the major retail distributors. And so that was about 18.52 billion. So these 5 settlements here are about 80% of that amount. So just to sort of give our best estimate, it would be by comparing it to those prior settlements. Then the use requirements are similar to the prior to the prior settlements, where depending on which of these defendants we're talking about, anywhere from 85 to 95.5% would need to be used for abatement. And so that's very similar to the prior deals. So the question also that comes up is, well, what would be the option to not take the agreement? The main issue is that this case, along with many others, are in the MDL, the Multi-District Litigation Court. And so just getting the case from that point to any situation where trial pressure could be put on these defendants here is probably going to be a long time, is one thing. The second consideration is the amount of discovery that would ultimately go on, however long in the future that might be, where we would have to link specific harm to your county via records to each of these defendants here. So it'd be things, going through hospital records, jail records, police records, that type of thing. And then that would have to, in terms of proof at trial, be able to be linked specifically to these defendants. So I say all that to say that, the likelihood of having a larger amount later down the road is certainly a possibility, but one that A, would be a lot longer down the road, and B, we believe would be a very risky route to take, just given the size, the population of the county. It's not like Los Angeles County or something along those lines. So I know I've been sort of going on for a while. If anybody has any questions, but our recommendation would be for the county to participate in the 5 settlements.
So really quick, it operates, the previous Attorney General create a formula. We went through that last time. The county gets a percentage of the money that it's entitled to. That comes straight to the county. To date, we received over 100,000.
Yes.
And that was from the previous settlement. Then there's this grant position. There's these grants that are out there, and that's the chunk of the money that then the county has to apply for. If it's spoken with the county executive, that's going to be one of the first things that the new health department director is briefed on. Additionally, the new MOU between the state and the local entities has a reporting requirement. Councilmember Holloway brought up last time the concern with the previous, is there not going to be enough work? Well, here's the government again telling us we need to have a special person who tells them special reporting requirements. And as of now, the first reporting date's March 31st, and I'm going to be the one completing that work. So, all these things interact. There's all these little things that the government's making the counties do, and in the long term probably can fill the full scope of work for the one position. So nothing is, other than adding this new reporting requirement person, the MOU with the state remains the same. So as John explained, it's either accept what it is or go at it alone. The council last time accepted the settlement agreement. The recommendation of outside council is to accept the settlement agreement. Recommendation of local council is to accept the settlement agreement. And this decision has to be made, John, by April 18th?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Everybody concur?
I do.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
All right, thank you very much. I'll start preparing the paperwork. John, thank you very much for making yourself available. Thank you to your assistant for the emails and scheduling.
Of course. Thank you for having me, and we'll have more updates as they come available.
Thank you, John. We appreciate it.
Okay. Good night.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Blue.
Second.
Second.